They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwarmerz podcast.
Welcome into the program, everyone. I'm Lou, that's Jose, and this is the Benchwarmerz podcast. Wherever, however, and whenever you happen to be listening, we appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend it with us. We'll try to make it worth your while. Stick around, stay for a while. It should be fun. So first hour flew by. We talked a lot of NFL, some breaking news in the NFL, and some baseball. Baseball's actually back, which is exciting. Coming up in a little bit, we're going back to the NFL. We have a couple things to touch on. We actually missed something in the first hour that I wanted to touch on, the artist formerly known as the Redskins. We talked about the Redskins, but we didn't talk about they're no longer the Redskins, but we'll get to that later. But now the NBA, there's some breaking news in the NBA, and then I would kind of want to have us go through sort of kind of how we feel about what's to come in this NBA bubble. Now, the biggest thing that caught my attention was that Clippers' Lou Williams was on excused absence to go to a funeral. And after the funeral, Mr. Williams decided to stop at a strip club called Magic City because he wanted to pick up some chicken wings. Apparently, Lou Williams has said that this is his favorite place in the entire world, and they have the best wings ever. But this, to me, is just, I mean, this is how it starts. I mean, has nobody seen a zombie movie? I mean, this is how it happens. Somebody does some little thing that they think isn't going to matter, and then the next thing you know, the entire world is blown up. So if you want to pop the NBA bubble, Lou Williams, this is how you do it. So this, to me, it just struck me as not only painfully, woefully, unconscionably selfish, it also struck me as ridiculously stupid. You're an NBA player. You can't use Grubhub. You can't use Uber Eats. You can't give somebody $10 to go bring it to you. You have to go yourself and be spotted and photographed and seen in a public place. I mean, how dumb do you have to be to not take this seriously? I feel like we keep saying the same things over and over again, Jose, but I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, just to repeat everything that we've been saying for the last 3 weeks. Why would you put yourself, your team, and the NBA in that position?
League, yes.
Yeah. And he goes on Twitter, because that's what everyone does now when they want to defend themselves. Yeah. Goes on Twitter and says, "Oh, relax, everybody. I was wearing a mask the whole time." That's not the point. The point is that you unnecessarily exposed yourself. And first, everyone has cameras now. Everyone has a camera. You cannot go anywhere as an NBA player and expect to not have your picture taken multiple times and posted within an hour. That's number one. Two, maybe this is just me. Why on earth would you eat anything at a strip club? Why would you eat anything at a strip club? I don't know. Maybe I haven't gone to enough sophisticated strip clubs.
Have you ever eaten at a strip club? Ever?
And I would never even consider it.
Yes.
I would never even consider it. And so, but that's what made me think, like, maybe
Chris Rock has a line about eating at strip clubs. I can't use it on the air because it's a little bit questionable.
Little Chris Rock, right? Yeah.
Go look it up.
But yeah, why on earth would you eat anything at a strip club? And then this third, just like, it's just a weird bereavement type of thing. I don't want to judge the way they handle death or anything, but like, you go to a funeral and your next stop is a strip club. It just seems to lack taste or class. I don't know. It just, and then of course, you're not even, it'd be one thing if, and no disrespect to the Orlando Magic, but it'd be one thing if you're a player on the Orlando Magic, who everyone in the world, including the Orlando Magic players, know have no chance of winning a championship this year. Everybody knows they have no chance of winning a championship. It's not a secret. The Clippers, on the other hand, are among the favorites, if not the favorite, to win it all this year.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go and jeopardize it to go to a strip club to eat wings? And then does anyone actually believe that's why he went to the strip club? I just want to throw that out there too. Like, we're not stupid, Lou. We're not stupid. Everyone knows why you go to a strip club. It is not to eat wings.
No, I mean, I can only imagine. I don't know if there were actual dancers there, but whether there were or not, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's just the sound of it alone and the images it conjures up, and then to defend yourself, like I started just laughing. Like, what on earth is on a strip club menu that looks appetizing? Like, are there puns? Is it like, try the G-string cheese? Like, all right, let's have rump roast for a special. Like, come on, man. What are you doing? And by the way, Lou Williams, I don't know if you paid attention to any of the science going on in the last, 6 months or so, but wearing a mask doesn't stop you from contracting the virus. All it does is stop you from spreading the virus if you already have it.
Yep.
So if you touch, think of all the things that you touch in a strip club to begin with that you could catch something from even before coronavirus. Now you're going there, and it's so.
If I'm a coach,
it's so stupid. Do you tell him? I would tell him not to come back.
Well, no, you don't do that because you wouldn't win a championship. You want to win a championship. He's got to quarantine for 10 days.
This was Bill Belichick.
Let's calm down.
If Bill Belichick can sit his star cornerback in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, fair enough.
Doc Rivers can chastise Lou Williams in, I don't know. I don't know I don't know what Malcolm Butler did, but I doubt that it was as potentially damaging to the team or the league as what Lou Williams did.
That's fair. That's fair. If I'm a coach,
maybe not Doc Rivers, maybe the commissioner, maybe Adam Silver.
He's got to quarantine for 10 days.
Yeah.
So he's automatically going to miss opening day.
Right.
He's going to miss like 2 or 3 games, and then we'll see from there because he also has to pass. He has to have 2. See, what would be the ultimate, and I don't wish this on him, but what would be the ultimate karma is if he tested positive for coronavirus.
Yeah.
That would be like...
That'd be sort of Rudy Gobert-ish, where he was... Remember that famous scene where he's touching all the microphones because he's not taking it seriously, and then lo and behold, hey man, you have coronavirus. Good job.
If I'm a coach, a player who's a team leader, a general manager, I'm talking to all my players, and then maybe they've already been doing this. You want to win a championship this year? You want to get paid for the rest of the season? You don't go anywhere. You don't do anything. You eat, sleep, and breathe basketball for the next 2 or 3 months. You stay in the bubble. I think they have restaurants in the bubble. I'm pretty sure they do. They have food to eat in the bubble. You bring your laptop. You bring your video games. You bring whatever it is that you do indoors to have fun. That's what you do. Because anything else outside of that is jeopardizing not only your chance to win a championship if you're a contending team, it's jeopardizing the entire league. Take it seriously. Stay home. I don't understand why people have to leave. And maybe it's because I've just, we talked about this last show. Maybe I'm just an old man and I don't want to go anywhere. I'm happy at my house. I'm fine. Maybe everyone just feels the need to go out, but I just don't understand. You have way too much on the line. Why would you risk it? For what?
That combined with by definition, it is life in a bubble. It's a bubble. You know what a bubble means? It means you have very defined boundaries that you cannot go out of. And so I don't know if it's just sort of I don't know. Maybe it's just because people are being told they can't do something that they want to do it and they just want to be obstinate and contrarian or whatever. But this did get me thinking about that, about the mentality of it. Maybe if I was told that, oh no, under no circumstances can you leave your room for 4 days, like I might open my door and stick my foot in the hallway just to be kind of a jerk about it. I don't know. I think if I was younger, if I was, the age of some of these guys between 20 and 30, I might have a little bit of a problem. But even now, Jose, between the two of us, you're married with a child. I'm single and I have dogs, and that's about it. So, the idea of a bubble, I feel like a bubble for me wouldn't be that bad. It'd be just sort of like, all right, I'm just going to hang out and kind of watch TV. I certainly miss my dogs, but it's not the same as having a wife and child at home. So, I was curious how you might look at this differently. Obviously, if it's your job and you're making millions of dollars to support a lifestyle for you and that same family, I don't know. I don't know how does that play out for you in your head if you were being told that you had to go live in a bubble for 3 months?
So the one thing that you just reminded me of, because I assume that players could have their families with them in the bubble. They just had to stay in the bubble, but it makes more sense what you're saying, that they probably don't have their families with them.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I think it would be tough to be away from my wife and son for 3 months, let's say, assuming I'm a champion on a championship team and I'm going to be playing that long, right? I think it would be tough to be away from them for that long. The miracles of current technology do allow us to connect via Skype and all these other different
FaceTime,
all these different platforms. The it's not the same as being in person, but you can bridge the gap a little bit with the current technology. I think. I mean, here's the thing. I call my wife the coronavirus sheriff because she's not playing around. And if I told her I was going to this bubble to play basketball, and she knew that was my life, she would not be like. If she got wind of me leaving, it would be over for me. So,
I mean, if you went to a strip club for wings, like Lou Williams did.
Man, if I went to CVS for a Yoo-hoo, all right, like it would be awful. It would be awful. Like, what are you thinking about? So, no, it's now. I will say that like I kind of have a low key lifestyle that's probably not similar to other NBA players. I don't know. I just imagine NBA players partying a lot because they have lots of money and lots of time on their hands at time. Who knows?
Young, they're in shape. They have money.
Yeah, that's kind of what I picture. And that's just not me. I think I would be bringing my PlayStation with me. I'd be bringing a laptop with me. I'd have my Netflix. Yeah. I'd have books, movies that I've been wanting to watch. I have a top 100 list of movies that I have watched 3 of the movies. So that would be, these are like there's some, IMDb has a top all-time 100 movies list. And I was like, oh, I should watch these. And I started for 1 week. And I could never finish it after that. So there would be like a lot of things like that I would try and do. And there are times where I'm sure I would get bored and have and then be monotonous. But there's too much at stake. And I would definitely, I would have no issue staying in the bubble. Now, staying in my room and not leaving the room, that would be tough. But I think the NBA bubble is a little bit bigger than that.
Yeah. And I think that this sort of sheds some light on the idea of, the competitive mindset where, we hear a lot of players say the following, I'll do whatever it takes to win.
Yep.
It always sounds good. It always is a good soundbite. It's a battle cry, whatever it takes, until whatever it takes is uncomfortable for some people. And then suddenly they're not willing to do whatever it takes because, I mean, I don't know if Lou Williams has ever said this or not, but I assume that mentality has been, thrown around a Doc Rivers-led locker room. And it's a test. It is, and it's a testament to what you're willing to be, what you're willing to sacrifice, your commitment to your craft. And it's hard. Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah, it's not fun. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, you're going to miss your family. But this is what you chose to do. And if you are serious about being the best at what you do, you actually do what it takes. You don't just say it, you do it. So,
and I just want to follow up just 2 points. First of all, if we had found out that Lou Williams broke the bubble or whatever to go visit his family, his wife and kids, we would still be like, oh, wow, that you shouldn't do that. But I don't think it would be as, at least in my opinion, I wouldn't be like, oh, what an idiot. How selfish could he be, right? You're going to be with your wife and kid. You're not going to a strip club to get wings, right? It's completely different. But secondly, just to build on your point, back in the day when I used to exercise all the time, regularly, I should say, I had a saying that maybe you've heard it before. I like to think I invented it, but I'm sure I didn't. Everyone wants to be in shape. Not everyone wants to get in shape. And
that's pretty good.
That's kind of what you're talking about. Like everyone says, oh yeah, I want to be a champion. I want to be the best player in the NBA. But when you're like, oh wait, I have to shoot 300 shots a day to start the morning. I have to by 6, I have to already have run 2 miles by 7 a.m. Whatever, I don't fill in the blanks of whatever the training regimen is.
Yeah, I have to be the first one on the court and the last one off the court,
which is tough if everyone's trying to do that. So,
right. Well, but then everybody's going to get better. So
yeah, exactly. So I do think what I hope is that, and this is what I hope for all sports, that this is a wake up call. You don't get to just make your own rules and do whatever you want to do and cherry pick what you want to follow.
Right.
You have to stay within the protocol. You leave to get an excuse to go to a funeral. You shouldn't be photographed at a strip club.
Yeah, I mean that's it. I mean, and again, if Lou Williams had contracted coronavirus on his excused absence while attending a funeral, no one's saying anything. It's just a sad story at that point.
Yep.
But if he comes back with coronavirus from getting wings at a strip club, that's not going to be forgotten anytime soon. I mean, that's going to be a permanent mark on his career that no one's going to forget. So
absolutely,
cautionary tale. Lou Williams, you were an idiot, and hopefully no one else is as dumb as you chose to be. So
I doubt it though. Someone's going to do something stupid.
There's always someone. Someone. Everyone thinks that the rules don't apply to them and they're special. So hopefully, hopefully not, but we'll see. So the next thing that came to mind with all the our whole NBA segment here is, the New York Knicks. I feel bad even bringing up the Knicks anymore. I mean, they signed Tom Thibodeau as their head coach, and his nickname is Tibbs. I don't know how you get Tibbs from Thibs, but that's fine, whatever. He's notorious for having very, very grueling practices, and he's kind of he's a hard ass, and he's a tough guy, and so he's respected. So maybe that brings in people, but it feels like, as much as a player or a free agent might like Tom Thibodeau, I feel like James Dolan is kind of the talent repellent of the NBA. And I said this when we talked about the Redskins last week. I think if you go 30 years without winning a title in your sport, I think you should change your name, because the Knicks were once this proud marquee franchise, and it was, you playing at the Garden in New York City, and the Garden still feels special. I mean, if you've ever been to a game at Madison Square Garden, it does feel different than other NBA arenas. But the Knicks have just been so putrid and non-competitive for so long that, even Kevin Durant, when he was leaving the Warriors, after he signed with the Brooklyn Nets, he talked about the Knicks and he said that's not a cool place to be. Nobody wants to be there. And so you have people open and if you think about it, in Kevin Durant's lifetime, the Knicks have been awful.
Yeah.
They've been a bottom feeding team for his entire life. So he doesn't remember back when Patrick Ewing was there, or even further back when they actually won championships. And I don't see how Tom Thibodeau, I don't know who the Knicks could hire at this point to help them. I don't even know what they can do anymore.
I actually think that Tom Thibodeau is a great hire for them. Just as to your point, though, about the Knicks, since 2000, they have 4 winning seasons. 2000. That's 20 years. 4 winning seasons. So they've been a dumpster fire of a franchise. Just almost as bad as it gets in the NBA. I do think that when Tom Thibodeau took over the Chicago Bulls in his first head coaching job way back when, they were not as bad as the Knicks, but they were kind of a mediocre, hovering around 500, some years below, some years above, and he turned them into a playoff contending team that may have done more had LeBron James not been in the same conference. I don't want to give them excuses, but that is what happened.
That's something of a reason.
Yeah. But I thought that they had a lot of good success, a lot of success.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he can take the Knicks from being a bottom-feeding, dumpster fire, trash team to maybe being slightly above 500, competing for the number 8, number 7 seed. The thing is, in the NBA, no matter how good of a coach you are, unless you're Greg Popovich or Brad Stevens, who just managed to always have good teams, but for the most part, no matter how good of a coach you are, you need franchise-level players. You need really good players. And one of the biggest failures that the Knicks have had since 2000 is the inability to draft franchise-level players, despite having lottery picks every year.
Yep.
And so that's how you build an NBA franchise. Yeah, Kevin Durant's right. Nobody wants to go to the Knicks. No free agent is going to say, you know what I want to do? I want to just go and toil and just be on a terrible team for the next 5 years. I'm going to go to the Knicks. No one wants to do that. The whole, this is the mecca of basketball, all that stuff, all that's garbage. It's all gone now, right? The whole, if you're in New York, you get more of the spotlight. That's basically gone now, too, because of the way social media has made everything global. You could be anywhere and get attention and get followers. You don't really need New York for anything anymore. But I do think if Dolan can step back, I think Thibodeau is a guy who can help get this organization turned around. I don't think he takes them to a championship level, but at least he takes them from being irrelevant trash to being somewhat relevant, fighting for an 8 or 7 spot in the playoffs in the next couple of years.
In just to defend the Knicks a little bit, sort of, they are only the 4th worst team in the Eastern Conference.
Oh, is that?
They're 20 going into this break. Before the break, they were 21-45. They are 12th out of 15, and the teams that are behind them are the Pistons, the Hawks, and not surprisingly, the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs are only 2 games behind them at 19-46, but still, the Knicks are not the worst team in the Eastern Conference, which I guess is something of an achievement at this point. But with that being said, I kind of want to talk about teams that actually are going to make the playoffs or have a chance to make the playoffs going into this bubble. But I wanted to ask you which team that looks like they're going to be in the playoffs feels like sort of Knick-ish and doesn't have a chance whatsoever. Who do you not give a chance to whatsoever? Let's start with the Eastern Conference. Is there a team that you just see that could make the playoffs and just has no business being there?
So I feel bad saying this about the Eastern Conference. I really think, if I'm being honest about who actually has a chance to win, I think the Bucks, the Raptors, Celtics, and Heat are the only 4 teams. I guess you could put the 76ers there, but I don't really believe in them. But record and talent would say that, so I would include them. But basically, any other team outside of those 5 teams have absolutely no shot. Not the Pacers, not the Nets, not the Magic, not the Wizards. No one else is even in after that. So it's the Eastern Conference is not very good at the bottom. I think it's the Bucks, Raptors, or Celtics, but I think the Heat are kind of a dark horse potential team in the East that could upset some people.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that the Nets they're currently at the 7th seed. They're not. I mean, they're just nothing's happening with the Nets. Like, why even have them in there? I mean, there's no point. Them and the Magic. I mean, the Magic at least. I don't know. I feel like the Magic might have some ability to at least be interesting on television. But the Nets are playing basically their JV squad at this point. You know, Kyrie Irving's not there. Kevin Durant already said he's not playing this year. So, well, I mean, it just seems like a fruitless effort. The Sixers, however, I think could be that dark horse team because, you know, depending on, I mean, their home and away splits were grossly mismatched. I mean, they were so much better at home than they were on the road. It was crazy. But I wonder if, you know, with no crowd, if maybe Ben Simmons will be better because maybe, you know, maybe it's not so much people cheering for him that helps him. Maybe it's just people cheering against him that hurts him. So in the absence of that, and he can just focus on himself, maybe they'll do some real damage. I could see them, you know, showing up and surprising, you know, a Raptors team or even a Celtics team and kind of catching them off guard and just advancing a little bit further than maybe anyone expects.
Well, yeah, last year if I actually had to go back and look, they were very close to actually eliminating the Raptors in the postseason last year, and they just, the Kawhi Leonard had that four bounce,
crazy bounce. Yep.
Yeah, the four bounces. I think that was in Game 7 or Game 6. It was game winning or series winning. So the Sixers are right there. I think that I just need to see a superstar performance from one of them. Either it's Ben Simmons or it's Joel Embiid. Most teams don't win a championship without having one player playing like a superstar. We haven't seen that in any postseason series, really, for the entire series anyway, from any player on the Sixers. So it's hard for me to say, oh, yeah, Joel Embiid's going to go out and average 30 a game. That's what he's going to need to do.
Yeah.
Or Ben Simmons, whomever. That's what they're going to need to do. And actually, it probably would be better if it's Ben Simmons, so that way Joel Embiid can just kind of stay in his 20 to 25 point range. And now you have two guys. Because as of right now, I consider Ben Simmons basically LeBron James minus 10 points per game. And that's not good. You know? It's like, I mean, the assists and rebounds are there, just the points aren't there. And at the end of the day, it comes down to putting the ball in the basket. And you just can't rely on Ben Simmons to score 10 points in the fourth quarter or 14 points in the fourth quarter to bring you back in the game. And that's what you need in the postseason to win, because it's not going to go according to plan all the time. You're going to be 7 minutes in the fourth quarter down by 7 points. And you're going to need your guys to step up and make plays. And I just don't have a lot of faith in the Sixers to do that.
So, all right. So next question. Aside from the Bucks, or maybe even including the Bucks, is there a team that looks championship ready in the Eastern Conference? I mean, the Bucks seem like the obvious choice, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they're there yet. I feel like, Giannis obviously is all world, unbelievable. Mm-hmm. But I think that even he still has some maturing to do, and he still has to develop kind of a better outside shot to sort of counter the defense that the Raptors did, put against them, and where they just built a wall and just stopped him cold in his tracks and forced him to shoot or pass. And, if he develops sort of that Patrick Ewing-esque 18-footer, then I think that he could be a force, an even tougher force to be reckoned with. But I don't know. Is there anybody that comes to mind?
Well, I think the Bucks are the first choice. The second choice to me, though, and actually the team I kind of feel like might actually be better than the Bucks in the postseason anyway, it's the Celtics.
I agree 100%. I was just going to say that.
It's hard to, you look at the record, they're not close. The Bucks are 10 games better. I just feel like, and I have to look back, and this is just off the top of my head, I just feel like they've been knocking on the door of a championship for about 3 or 4 years right now. And Jason Tatum, he looks ready to continue his ascent into superstardom. Mm-hmm. Jaylen Brown, great player. Kemba Walker. We already know Kemba Walker. Gordon Hayward, Marcus Smart. They have really capable players who also play well together. And then they have, in my opinion, I'm going to give Greg Popovich the respect to call him the best coach in the game, but Brad Stevens number 2 to me in the game right now, as it's like second best coach. And I would be like, if I'm the Bucks, I want the Celtics to be eliminated early. I do not want to see the Celtics at all this postseason.
Yeah, and don't forget too. I mean, they traded away Al Horford to the Sixers, but they got Enes Kanter from Trailblazers, I believe. Who, I mean, obviously, Horford is a great player, but I mean, Enes Kanter's got some talent, and he showed some talent last year when he was on the Blazers. And I mean, they have Taco Fall is there too. Mm-hmm. Which, he's, I mean, whether or not he's going to be incredible or not is up for debate. But I mean, he still is a bona fide 7-footer plus. So that's still hard to get around, even if he's not that athletic.
I also want to give honorable mentions. I had 2. I mean, the Celtics are definitely my pick, but I want to give an honorable mention to the Raptors. They did win the championship last year. Mm-hmm. They are the second best team in the Eastern Conference right now. Pascal Siakam is playing like a top 15, 10 player right now. And
Nick Nurse has to be in that conversation of great coaches. Absolutely. I mean, he did have Kawhi Leonard last year, but I mean, he's led a Kawhi-less Raptors team to a number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference.
In fact, I forgot about Nick Nurse. And in fairness, based on the fact that he has a championship, we probably should put Nick Nurse ahead of Brad Stevens. I like Brad Stevens, but Nick Nurse does probably deserve that spot. And the other, the Miami Heat, they have 8 players averaging double figures on their team. And they don't have a true star, a guy who you could count on to score 30, 40 in a game if necessary, which is why I don't necessarily think they can go very far. But there is a precedent for teams just being deep and being able to win a championship. And the Heat having 8 players who average double figures kind of fit that bill as a team that's just very deep that can beat you in a lot of ways.
Well, funny enough, you sort of made my next point for me in that, the most underrated player, I think, in the Eastern Conference, actually for me, and you just proved it, is Jimmy Butler. And that Jimmy Butler does not get the credit that I think he deserves. And, some of it is stats. I mean, in 2019, 2020, he averaged 20 points a game, 6.5 rebounds, and 6 assists, which pretty good. 45% field goal shooter. I mean, he's only 25% 3-pointer. He's an 83% free throw shooter, which is all pretty good. Yeah. But the biggest thing is when I watched him last year on the Sixers, Jimmy Butler he wants the ball in those big time pressure moments. He has a little bit of that. I'm not comparing him to Jordan, but that's sort of that mentality where it's like the game's on the line. I want the ball. And watching him play last year, I mean, he has some magic in him. And I think that he could really will a team to maybe a victory that they don't have any real right to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that is overlooked about Jimmy Butler is he's a pretty good on-the-ball defender.
He's great. 4-time all-defensive team, yeah.
Yeah, he's a pretty good on-the-ball defender. He's a great all-around player. I prefer him as the second player on the team, but he's kind of proven me wrong a little bit, especially with the success the Heat have had this year. Yep. I think that's a great pick. Jimmy Butler is a really good player. It's funny because I actually had 2 players for underrated, and one of my players were on the Heat. It was Bam Adebayo. I hope I'm saying his name correctly.
Sounds right.
Yeah. He's a third-year power forward center on the Miami Heat. Averaging 16.2 points per game, 1.2 steals, 1.3 blocks, 10.5 rebounds, and shooting 56.7% from the floor. And really, what stands out to me is that he's just defensively, like by the metrics, he's one of the best defensive players in the game, and has done very well against Giannis during this regular season. Where if the Heat happen to match up with the Bucks in the first or second round, that might not be an ideal matchup for them. And my other player, because I was looking at the Bucks and I was surprised, Chris Middleton. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you a little something about Chris Middleton. He's averaging 21.1 points per game. That's great, right?
Pretty good, yeah.
But he is very close to joining an exclusive club in the NBA.
Is this going back to the Lou Williams Magic City?
No.
Oh, different club. Sorry.
Different club. The 50-40-90 club, or the 40-50-90 club, however they say it. 50% from the floor, 40% from behind the line, 90% from the free throw line. He's over 90% from the free throw line. He's around 42% from the 3-point line. He's at 49.9% from the floor.
Wow.
So I don't know if they would just give it to him because he's at 49.9 and it just rounds up, or if he has to go. But he's got
to start taking some layups and get that percentage up.
As a second player on a really, really good team, I think Chris Middleton's being overlooked a little bit. He's a great player.
All right, so I want to move to the Western Conference because we're getting through some time here.
Yep.
A couple of things about the Western Conference. I don't want to reiterate too many of the same questions as we had for the Eastern Conference, but I am curious if you have sort of a dark horse contender that you have picked out from the Western Conference.
Yeah, so in the Western Conference, I feel like it's a little bit more set at the top. We're not in the top, but like the kind of the top 4 or 5 teams.
Yeah.
I look at the Trailblazers. They're not currently even in the playoffs, so they would need to get into the postseason. But they were in the Western Conference Finals just last season, and the Trailblazers have one of the best players in the game in Damian Lillard.
Yep.
They have CJ McCollum. They have Hassan Whiteside. They have a seemingly rejuvenated Carmelo Anthony. I think they have a shot to steal the number 8 seed, number 7 seed, and potentially go on a run. That would mean that they end up knocking off either the Clippers or the Lakers, which I don't see, but I kind of look at the Trailblazers because I honestly I'm looking at the Nuggets. I don't give them a chance. I look at the Rockets. I don't really give them a chance.
Really?
No, not really. Yeah, I really don't. I don't look at the Nuggets. I look at the Lakers and the Clippers. To me, the Western Conference is going to come down to the Lakers and Clippers. But if there's a team, I don't believe in James Harden and Russell Westbrook. So I'm just going to say that right out. I just don't think that it's going to work in the postseason. I think they're both too easy to defend in the postseason. I'll look at maybe the Mavericks as well. Mm-hmm. They have Luka Doncic, who is having a ridiculous season, averaging over 28 a game. I had his numbers written down here, averaging over 28 a game, around 8.7 assists, 9.5 rebounds. I just feel like in the NBA, you need to have a superstar.
I agree. No, I agree completely. As far as my team, I picked a team that's also on the outside looking into the playoffs right now, but the Pelicans actually struck me as a potential dark horse. And here's why. So they might be the youngest team in the league. They have Zion Williamson, who I think is 19 years old. Lonzo Ball is young. Brandon Ingram. JJ Redick's a little older, but by and large, they're a very young team. And with that youth, I think if they play with sort of that reckless abandon, and they haven't been around long enough to kind of let that how do I explain this? Like the mentality that they aren't going to beat the Lakers or that they aren't going to beat the Clippers or that that caste system, they're sort of upstarts and they kind of come in sort of with this blank slate where it's like, yeah, we could win. Why not? They haven't tasted that first real bitter loss, and they might be able to play with enough youthful exuberance that could, they could be a Cinderella team. I could easily see them surprising, a Lakers or a Clippers team and catching them off guard with just, boundless energy and sort of just that youthful, we've got nothing to lose attitude. And obviously that's predicated on actually making the playoffs, though.
It's a great pick, and you understand the formula too. You need a guy who can score 40 points if you need them to win, and they have that in Zion Williamson. If you don't have that player, it is so difficult to win a championship because, as I said earlier, things don't go according to plan in the postseason, and sometimes you just need to play above what you normally play, and you need to, hey, we need 45 from you tonight. Go get it. Like that's what you have to be able to do. So I like the pick.
Okay. I'm gonna give you one more question in the postseason for the Western Conference, and then we have to take a break.
Yep.
Who in your pick? So I'm gonna take LeBron out of this because LeBron just is sort of the exception to every rule, and he's the easy answer to everything. So no LeBron. LeBron's off the table. Who has, between player, team, or coach, who has the most to win or lose this postseason in this bubble for the NBA in the NBA Western Conference?
Western Conference.
Yeah.
I took a coach here. I have a coach here.
Really?
Yeah, because we've been talking about players over the last few weeks about having a lot to lose and gain, and I wanted to go a different direction. Mike D'Antoni is a guy I'm looking at here. How many chances is he going to get? Just as much to lose. So I feel like he has more to lose than to gain, but still, how many chances is he going to get to prove that his system works in the postseason? It obviously it didn't work when he was. Well, I don't even know if the Knicks went to the postseason when he was there, but it didn't work with the Knicks. It didn't work with the Suns, and it's not currently working with the Rockets. I think there's a strong chance that the Rockets are eliminated in the first round of the postseason this year. Wow. And if that happens, right now I'm looking at Nuggets, Rockets. Assuming it holds up. Mm-hmm. Nuggets, Rockets. I can't confidently pick the Rockets over the Nuggets. I think it's probably a wash. And I think I might lean to the Nuggets because I think they play better team basketball. And I just don't feel like the Rockets play great team basketball. But at the same time, so that's who I'm. Mike D'Antoni is my pick.
Okay.
There, and then just to add, as teams, I look at the Clippers and Lakers. Whatever team doesn't win this year is going to have blown a big opportunity because the Warriors are going to be back full strength next season.
That's true. That's very true. I will say that maybe this could work out extremely well for Mike D'Antoni and the Rockets specifically, because it seems like, there's sort of this, what's the common theme that they sort of that all these D'Antoni-led teams have? They lose in the playoffs. Well, that could be because they are such prolific scorers during the regular season. They, if you look at, that Phoenix team, they were over 100 points. It felt like every game they were well over 100 points.
Yep.
The Knicks were on a scoring machine. They had, was that Jeremy Lin, I think, was there at that point? That's for some of that.
Right. That sounds right.
Melo, I think that was the Melo years, right? Then D'Antoni was there briefly.
Yep.
And, and then with the Rockets, most recently, they are scoring machines. James Harden is always, if he's not winning the scoring title, he's right there, competing for it. And maybe with an abbreviated postseason, and a long break to recharge, maybe that system might work because the players won't be so gassed after just, a grueling, high energy, crazily, exhausting regular season. So I think that I would say if it doesn't work this year, it's not going to ever work because this is their best chance.
I think the problem that, and maybe it wouldn't happen this way with the Rockets because they're a little bit different team. But when I look back at the Phoenix Suns with Steve Nash and Sean Marion and Amari Stoudemire and everyone, the biggest issue I think that they had was they couldn't score efficiently when they weren't running. When they just had to run a regular half-court set, that's when they struggled.
Yep. And
you have to be able to score in different ways in the NBA. Teams aren't going to let you do what you normally like to do. They're going to try and stop you from doing that. So you have to have other options. And it just felt like they don't, and same thing with the Rockets. It doesn't feel like they have an efficient system when they say, you know what, we're going to just let you dribble all around, James, and shoot a bad shot, and we're going to get the rebound, and then we're going to run our offense. They don't seem to have an answer for that. So I don't know.
Yeah. I think that the player to me who has the most to gain from winning in this postseason is Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard, because he's in Portland, he's like the forgotten superstar. And when you see him and you see him play, you go, wow, that dude is for real. And I think if he were to be able to add a ring to his resume, I think we would look at Damian Lillard in sort of that upper echelon.
Absolutely.
And I think in a way, if he gets a ring and especially if he gets 2 rings, I think we would look at him as being better than Kawhi Leonard, honestly. And
he'd certainly be in that level.
Right. I don't think, no one's touching LeBron, but I think if you gave Damian Lillard a ring, I think that people would probably value him higher than even James Harden with all his, scoring accolades. So he's my pick for the biggest. He could win the most, because no one's really expecting them to win. So
yeah, and I just to finish off your point there, if he goes off, they're going to have to score. He's going to have to average like 30, 35 points a game. So if he does that and they win the championship, he absolutely gets in that top 5 discussion.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll revisit this when the season starts. You can follow us along and revisit it too with the iHeartRadio podcasting app. We're part of their lineup: Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Twitter handle is at the BW Pod. You can email us if you'd like, the Benchwarmers at yahoo.com, Benchwarmers with a Z for marketing purposes. And so coming up next, we're going to round out the show with a little more NFL talk. There's some interesting things going on thanks to the coronavirus. And I'm going to get into my crazy theory about how the NFL could actually just take over the entire sports world thanks to COVID. So we'll have that coming up. So stick around. I'm Lou, that's Jose, and this is the Benchwarmerz podcast. We'll be right back.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Now available on iHeartRadio and Spotify. This is the Benchwarmers Podcast. Here's Lou and Jose.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. I'm Lou, that's Jose, and this is still the Benchwarmers Podcast. We appreciate you spending a bit of time with us today. If you're still with us, you've gone through a whole litany of topics, starting way back in hour one with baseball, talking some football, Jamal Adams, Tyreek Hill, Alex Smith. We just got done with our basketball preview and talking about how Lou Williams is an idiot, and then who we think has the best and worst chances in the individual conferences in the NBA. Now, speaking, some more COVID talk. Jose, Dante Hightower, Devin Funchess, Brandon Bolden, Marquise Goodwin, Patrick Chung, and a whole host of other people that you won't recognize their names have all opted out of the NFL season. And this, while some of these guys aren't, pivotal players, it is sort of noteworthy, and it's I think they have until August to make a decision. So this list could extend pretty substantially, and I just wanted to see what your thoughts were about, how you're looking at these players that are opting out so soon.
Well, I don't want to go in and because a lot of players have more to consider than just football, and they have families, they have their own personal health, and I think that comes first. Obviously, I know that goes without saying. But I don't know. It's to me, I see myself having a trouble. I don't think that I would be opting out of the season if I were in their position, and it's hard for me to put myself in their position. But I feel like you always play with knowing that you could get injured. I guess coronavirus could kill you, and so it's a little different. It just seems weird to me that players would be willing to sacrifice a year. And I don't want to undersell it, but I think if you follow protocol, you socially distance, you do all the things you should do, and everyone else does it as well, which is probably the big issue, then it should be fine. I don't know. I think it's rough. Like I don't want to criticize them or crucify them. It just seems, I don't know. The players who are they tougher because they're staying in? Are they dumber because they're staying in? I don't know. I think it's just a personal decision how comfortable you feel with the safety. I think I'd be playing though.
So I guess it is worth noting that according to NFL.com, there are two different levels of player that can opt out. The voluntary opt out, and this is from NFL.com. The player will be eligible for a stipend of $150,000 to be treated as part of their salary. If you're an undrafted free agent, you're not eligible for the stipend. But that's if you're a voluntary opt-out. If you're designated as a higher risk opt-out, then, with pre-existing medical conditions or, a lot of, there's a whole litany of diseases that they list. It says, quote, "It is not mandatory for a higher risk player to opt out. A higher risk opt out will receive an accrued season toward free agency and all benefits and minimum salary credit for a credited season, and is also eligible for a stipend of $350,000, which will not constitute a salary advance. While as the voluntary opt out, the $150,000 will be treated as part of your salary. It's an advance in your salary that obviously will come out at a later date, and you will not get credit for an accrued season. So, at least there is some designation between the two. So that's pretty solid. I'm not sure where I would stand with this, because you want to hope that everyone's doing the right thing, but as we know, it's not going to happen. And even if it is happening, I mean, there's still the chance that somebody touches something that's there's that cascade effect of just you never know. It could be somebody sneezes in Iowa and then the entire state of Florida is closed down. So it's just kind of and not to mention that you're out kind of sweating and bleeding and not intentionally spitting on people, but I mean people are spitting. There's all kinds of things flying around on a football field because that's football. So I would be nervous. I don't think that I would opt out quite this early. I might see how the NBA does. And obviously there is a difference. I mean, I guess the NFL is more like the MLB situation, where the MLB does, they're not in a bubble and they're starting to creep up. Like we talked about to open the show, the Marlins have an outbreak because someone or someones were kind of stupid and not taking this seriously enough. So I wanted to, can the NFL have a bubble? I was thinking about this today, and I don't know the answer to it. I think that there's so many players, a 53-man roster, and then I think they might even expand it. Coaches, assistant coaches, ball boys. I mean, God, there's so many more people involved with a football team than an NBA team.
Yeah.
I think that the only place this might work is Las Vegas. And how better to sort of put on display the NFL's new crown jewel and new gigantic stadium in a town that's, built for attractions. So I don't know, but I don't know how you would get that many games. I mean, you'd have to have satellite stadiums or something, or, UNLV or something, and use their stadium. But I don't know.
I love the idea. I love the idea. I see. This is why you're just so much smarter than I am. I was thinking, go do it at a university, because a lot of universities are probably going to just be, doing online schooling, and they're not. They're going to have empty campuses. Then you said, do it in Vegas. I was like, duh, do it in Vegas. Like, why would you do anything else? And yeah, it makes sense. I mean, just first of all, from a capacity standpoint, Vegas can handle the entire NFL probably in 2 hotels, right? Mm-hmm. So that's number one. 2, Vegas is probably starving from an economical standpoint, standpoint, as far as because they basically their entire business is tourism, and if people aren't traveling, then they obviously aren't making the type of money. So this would infuse money into a city that needs it. 3, as you pointed out, it would highlight the Raiders Stadium, which multiple teams would be playing on that. Now, I think the biggest issue, once you also pointed out, is that you need multiple football fields. I don't think you need to have a stadium, though, because we're not going to have fans, right? I don't think anywhere. So you just need a field. And 100 yards is 100 yards, right? It doesn't matter if it's in Arrowhead Stadium or if it's at Las Vegas High School, which I'm sure there's not a Las Vegas High School, but I'm just throwing it out there. Whatever high schools are in Las Vegas. You have 100 feet. 100 yards. You have a sideline. You have touchdowns, end zones. You can get it done. Yeah. So I think you probably just need, I don't know, maybe 4 fields. I'm not a scheduling expert. Yeah. But maybe 3 to 4, somewhere between 3 and 5 fields. Maybe you need 5 just to get it all in there. But I think it's a great idea. I don't know. I'm sure someone smarter than us with more influence could kind of get this moving if that's what they wanted to do.
So, I mean, the other option, I'm kind of just spitballing this idea off the cuff, but maybe they could have a game, because I mean, obviously everyone's going to want to play in that Vegas stadium. I mean, that's going to be, you have this giant LED screen there, and it obviously it's going to feel different. Even with no fans, it's still a different atmosphere in a stadium like that compared to, your average high school field. And not to mention the groundskeeper, the entire actual landscaping of it and the field itself might be different. But maybe the NFL could have games every day of the week where you have, I'm not sure how that would work scheduling wise, or if you did like 3 games a day on Saturday, Sunday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and sort of just did it that way where you're I don't know how the turnover would work and the resetting of the field and things like that. Maybe you just have a generic NFL end zone, so there is no real home game, sort of like the NBA is dealing with right now. But maybe that's an option of sorts.
It could be. The funny thing is, though, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but you had such a great idea last week or 2 weeks ago that I think actually would work very well in this situation, especially with the NCAA kind of talking about moving. I think eventually when we get to September, the entire NCAA football will be in the spring. And so if the NFL does what you recommended 2 weeks ago, maybe you should be like a consultant for the NFL or something like that. I don't know, but
and so what Jose is talking about is the idea I had was, actually, as a matter of fact, I thought that the idea was sound and solid enough that for the first time in my life, I actually emailed and tried to contact a sports team. And I picked, I grew up a Cowboys fan, so I picked Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones. And I found their emails. And I actually sent Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones an email that I'd like to read to you now.
Oh.
To get your input on. Because this sort of lays out my plan for what I think the NFL could and should do. Potentially, at least. I mean, I addressed most of the topics here, so I'm just going to read the email in its entirety. I mean, it's not super long, but I kind of I figured Jerry Jones didn't have a lot of time to if he even got this far, if he ever actually saw this, he'd want to get right to the point. So I'm going to read this now. Mr. Jones, my name is Lou Ruggieri, and I'm a diehard Cowboy fan. I'm emailing you because I have an idea on how to possibly save the upcoming season from COVID. And I am emailing you because it's been clear to me that you are the most ambitious and revolutionary thinker among all NFL owners.
Nice.
It also doesn't hurt that you run my favorite team. So, butter them up a little bit.
Yeah, I like it.
I will get right to the point. I think the NFL should employ a bi-weekly playing schedule for the 2020 season. 16 teams can play week 1, while the other 16 teams can play week 2, and then alternate weeks. There will be no need for a bye week, as each team will have 2 full weeks to recover and travel. Thursday nights might present a bit of a problem, but even then, if you have the teams play on the Thursday of the second week, there will still be ample time for rest and recovery. With this schedule, several things are possible. Number 1, any positive COVID tests will have proper amount of time to quarantine, barring any serious pre-existing conditions, and not hurt the quality of the team's play, nor affect the outcome of the games due to players' absences. Number 2, the NFL will get what is always wanted, to own more months of the year. With what would amount to a 34-week schedule, or about 8 months, the NFL regular season would go until about April, with the playoffs being late April, early May, and depending on how the schedule plays out, you could have the Super Bowl be played the day before Memorial Day, which fits perfectly with the NFL's continued support of armed forces.
Oh, man,
Number three, if that 34-week schedule is too long, then with no college football, you might be able to have half the games on Saturday and half the games on Sunday for the entirety of the season, or even split them up and do 8 games both Saturday and Sunday one week and 8 each of the following week, thereby giving the NFL 2 full days a week with 0 competition. Obviously, I doubt you'll ever read this, and I'm aware that there's a myriad of logistical and contractual issues that are far beyond my scope of understanding, but I thought this might be a good idea, and you're the only one I could ever imagine having the guts to pull it off. Thank you for your time. Go Cowboys. Sincerely, Lou Ruggieri. P.S. Thank you for giving Dak a franchise tag. I am not sold on his ability to be an elite-level quarterback, and the Cowboys' standards far higher than just being average.
Of course you're throwing the shot at Dak. Of course you're throwing the shot at Dak. Poor Dak. He's home. He's practicing. He's trying to prove himself. And here comes Lou.
Yep.
Not even talking about Dak, going into coronavirus planning, and he says, "You know what? Let me just throw in a jab at Dak while I'm at it." No, it's. I love your letter. I will say too, like that. First of all, it's genius because I don't want to say when this happens, when they do this, you will have a legitimate paper trail, right?
Yeah.
Like you will say, oh, I sent this email on this date to Jerry Jones. Now, I don't know if you attached the read receipt to it. I'm not sure if it would even work.
Didn't even think about it.
But
actually,
I don't know if you could confirm that he actually read the email and that's where he got the idea from. But you could at least contend that you sent it early. This could be the Lou Ruggieri idea. But what I love most about the plan, just all jokes aside,
yeah,
because of the shifting schedules that the coronavirus has created, right? And the NHL's already announced, not that the NHL matters, but the NHL's already announced that they're starting their season, I believe, in December. NBA is probably going to end up starting their season in December, January, something like that. Major League Baseball, I guess they'll start in their normal March, April time. There's not going to be a lot of competition. There's not really anything that would stop the NFL from just going every other week. It just seems like I can't think of a reason why they wouldn't do this.
I mean, the only things that came to mind were sort of the contracts with the television networks. But honestly, I mean, if you look at, the goal of the NFL is to make money. And if you're playing, the NFL owns a day of the week for 6 months. And so if you were to give them more months, I mean, there's no stopping. Nothing is going to contend with the NFL. I mean, could you imagine preseason? I mean, April in Major League Baseball. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Who cares about game 20 in April?
Right. And so you're able to have more teams on more TVs. So I think it actually works better with the TV contract because you're able to broadcast more teams and get more games and get more revenue than you would with just having one game a week on one station or two stations or 2 games a week on 2 different stations.
It's a perfect plan, I think. The only question that I have, and not that people, there's a little peek behind the curtain, Lou is super fit. He knows a lot about fitness. He's just super healthy, and he's amazing. But here's my question, since you're the fitness guru here. What would the recovery of a player be like? Right. So if you're playing even if you're playing every other week, just your best guess here, you're playing from September till April, and then training. Let's assume that next season is going to start on time in September. Is that enough recovery time?
I mean, if you think about it now, I mean, if you're playing till February, if you're lucky enough to play that far, training camp starts in July, usually?
Yeah, sounds right.
So, right. I mean, 5 months, I mean, you're talking instead of that, I mean, if you're playing into the end of May, but I think the thing is, that instead of having that sort of condensed, brutalized schedule where it's every week, your body's being pounded into the ground and into submission over and over and over and over again, you're sort of spreading out the recovery time into smaller chunks where it's not, all here and then all there. It's a little bit over the course of a longer period of time. So if you're fully recovered, from game to game, you're not going to need that much time in the off season to recuperate because you're not going to be that beat up because you're not going to keep exacerbating injuries over and over and over again because you're going to have ample time to recover. So, I don't think that you need as much time is the answer to that question.
That was the only potential hole that I saw. And obviously, like you said at the end, there's things that maybe we just don't have the scope of understanding. There's probably a lot of things that we don't understand.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But as far as just that was the only potential hole that I saw that, maybe there's a reason that there's a 6-month off season. Yeah. They're trying.
Well, the draft, the draft is the only thing that came to mind. The draft and rookies and how you incorporate new players into the season that way, I think it could be challenging. But I think you just augment the timetable that the NFL's set. Instead of having the draft in April, you have it in June, and then you own that day in June.
Yep.
And then, it's an abbreviated time, but so be it. The players are, college players are better than they've ever been before, and they come in play ready from day one a lot more than they used to. So they don't need as much time. So it's just a thought, and I think that I would love to see the NFL be a 34-week season. I mean, could you imagine not having? I mean, I would get nothing done on the weekends, but I would also be incredibly happy sitting on my couch for most of the year.
I might end up being divorced because right now the football season is just, my wife's like dreading it. She's like, I hate when it's football season, because like it's Sunday, it's Monday, and it's Thursday. I don't know what to tell you. And I always say like I didn't schedule these games. I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like they put the games on these. Like, what am I supposed to do? Not watch them? Yeah. Like, come on. So yeah, you're absolutely right. There would be some marriages that'll be ended, but we'll still have football. Being single does make that a lot easier. When I was in a long-term relationship, I got crap for it every week. Well, you're gonna watch another game? Well, yes, it's the Chiefs Ravens. I mean, I have to watch. Like, don't you know what Tom Brady's about to do? Like, come on, it's kind of the undercover reason why I don't like Thursday night football. Yeah, because it just give me Sunday, Monday, and that way I can just have Thursday. Like, but now that the game's on Thursday, I have to watch it. Like, what do you want me to do? Not watch it? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I agree. Sundays and Mondays. Or Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Get rid of the Thursday game, make Thursday game a Saturday game, and then you have Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and you're the NFL and you own 3 days a week for 6 months. So I don't know. That's my idea, and we'll see. I'm gonna send this to Jerry Jones again and see, and eventually he'll send it to Roger Goodell. Why is it in Jerry Jones? Send it to Roger Goodell. Go right to the top. Man. I did think about that. I didn't know if I couldn't find Roger Goodell's email address, so okay. Probably tough to find. I'll hunt it down and see. Maybe I'll CC Roger Goodell on my email to the end. But all right, so Jose, that's going to do it. I think we're pretty much out of time for the show, but I wanted to share that with you and everyone else, and hopefully someone somewhere is listening and pays attention and thinks that this is good enough, because I would love, not just because it's my idea, but because I think it's actually a viable solution to a problem that could derail an entire season. And if football gets derailed, I'm just going to sit on my couch every Sunday and probably just cry for 3 hours at a time. What are we going to talk about on this show if football gets derailed? I think what we should do, I thought about this, and I think what we're going to do is, if there is no football season this year, we're going to go back and we're going to watch week 1 of last season and then week 2 of last season. We're going to replay last season on this show, and we're going to talk every week as if that those games are happening for the first time, and we're going to react the way we would have reacted, and we're going to replay the season, and that's what we're going to do. So, all right, so that'll do it. For more crazy ideas like this, you can follow us along the iHeartRadio podcasting app, Spotify, YouTube. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. You can email us and tell me how crazy my stupid idea is at the Benchwarmers podcast at yahoo.com, Benchwarmers with a Z. And if you happen to see Jerry Jones, let him know that he should read my email. He doesn't have to respond, but he should read it. So that'll do it. We'll see you next time. For Jose Ortiz, I'm Lou Ruggieri, and this has been the Benchwarmers podcast. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.